Here they all are in their individual modes. Well, it's cool getting a set complete, and the kind of crazy colours do complement one another. And I say this many times, when you put a set together, they kind of hide each other's imperfections. But let's talk about some of those imperfections. Well, starting off with Mammon Blot, definitely the weakest of the set. Doesn't transform well. He transforms all right, but the alt mode isn't good, the robot mode isn't good, doesn't stand very well in either mode. Looks probably the weirdest of the lot, ugliest of the lot, and hey, he's not meant to be pretty, but really just came across as disappointing. Cinetwin Astaroth does come across the most boring of the set, maybe. The first one that got released just comes across very uninspiring, not a lot of thrills, doesn't even cut too much of a stylized set. He's very rectangular in that sense. When you get to the latter releases, with Leviathan and Lucifer, the stylization really takes over and kind of gives an added bit of flair to the set. As individual figures, they're very, very good. And when you put the big bot at the back there, there's a lot to like. There is a lot of character here. The things that they really went for, the stylization, but heavy ratchets as well. Very vibrant colours, very clashing colours almost. The light piping was very much a feature throughout this set, but I felt it was over-relied, so much so that it really was a feature in alt mode and robot mode, and to some points even blocking the light coming in with head furniture is a bit of an odd choice. I'm not a fan of light piping generally anyway, but TFC really wanted to do it with this set. It is a cool looking set. It is certainly not aiming for the G1 Toon aesthetic, and if you want G1 Toon Terrorcons, this probably isn't the set for you. But if you like the idea of the feral side of it, the aggressive side of it, then they do look good when they're all together, like most combiner teams do. And there they all are in their beast modes together. It's not easy getting them all in the same shot, and I transformed Blot very quickly, so he's not wanting to stand up. It's a good set. It's good to get any set done, but you do really see the first to the last. So just look at it in this sense, at least by alphabetically, and I can't quite remember the release. Cinetwin Astaroth being the first one, Hung-Garr, Jakiro even, to be the last release, and massively different sizes, but you can see the differences. You can see the differences between these two at the front beginning later into the range. It was a stumble through, I think, is not too unkind to say. I like it. I like what it does. I like it being different, but there's hit and misses, and sadly, these two are definite misses. They're just design flaws. And I didn't mind Astaroth when I first got him. I was okay with it, but it took to getting Ripper Snapper and Cutthroat later on, Leviathan and Lucifer, that I thought, okay, this is what it should have been from the start. And certainly getting Jakiro at the end, wow, if the entire set was like that, then I wouldn't be complaining at all. But it is cool getting them together. They got such a fierceness and ferociousness that whilst, yes, it's not Toon accurate, and it's certainly not G1 in that sense, if you had G1 Terrorcons, would they look anywhere near this fierce? If you think of Ripper Snapper, he's got a quite awful and bland walking shark alt mode based on a G1 toy. So imagining a Hypertoon accurate third-party company doing that, I think it would lose some of its edge. So the likes of TFC or even a Kang Toys could do a stylized version and it actually work. It's not perfect, but it is cool getting the set together. And there they all are in their combined forms. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I've done everything right, because my God, there is some contradictory information out there, no less from TFC themselves, be it their printed instructions or their transformation videos if you can find them. I have more or less worked it out from looking at combined images, but even then, there is some misleading information out there. I've got it by a configuration, and that's going to be my advice to you in this. Do it the best you can. Get it to a state that you're more or less happy with. Because broadly speaking, there isn't a right or wrong way to do it as long as it holds. So I'll show you some of the combined forms quickly before we get them combined up. I will say Cinetwin Astaroth gave me the most trouble, and I actually think he's going to be quite structurally weak because you're transforming the chest of robot mode, you can see at the top there, round the other way, and it doesn't latch in as well. You really do have to compress it, as that's going to be a weight bearing leg. I'm not so sure how that's going to hold up. Blot, who is notoriously the worst one of the set, apart from the head not tabbing in, actually transformed up fairly well. The arms are pretty good. With Ripper Snap out, you can see we've extended now, so we've got an elbow lock. Fair bit to do, and the legs on the arm bots are not... They're kind of just there. This is the back of TFC toys. They just kind of hang legs off them. I think the instructions say the talons should be facing the other way, but if I've gone wrong somewhere, fine. I will say about this, actually, everything more or less does have a peg to tab into. So the feet would otherwise flop around. You've got these side pegs that lock them in, and that is kind of a theme throughout this set. There is ports that tab everything together and lock it in securely, broadly speaking. And I'll quickly show you around Cutthroat. This is the one with the biggest discrepancy. A lot of instructional videos say the head's got to be further down and this chest has got to split. The printed instructions tell you to have it in this configuration and to fan the wings out. But video instructions say to tug the wings in, and otherwise if you have the head down it's going to flop around. You have to lock it into the side of the arms. It's odd. It's really, really confusing. So I've got it to a configuration to get ports available to tuck legs out the way. But stuff does tab in. Like, I do like the fact that these hip skirts go into the side. Everything's got a peg, everything's got a place, and it does latch in quite securely. Nothing is wobbling. And you consider he's mostly wings as well. As I say, you can have the wings in any which way configuration, and it's not entirely going to be wrong. I will give quite a bit of praise here because, as I say, everything tabs in, and wow, does it ever. There is ports for ports. These things move back to tab into some very meaty side pegs. You can just see there. Legs going into shoulders. Even frontal arms open and tab into the back of the shoulders. The front shield goes in. So it does work quite well. Everything locks and secures. I've been quite impressed with the combined torso form. As I say, there are discrepancies out there. Just make your best of it. Okay, well, it's been something like, I don't know, 5 to 7 years now at least. Let's get into combining them, shall we? Well, it isn't easy getting them all in a light box, but there it is. It suffers with the typical combiner problems, such as the tiniest bit of leaning and some interesting combination ports. There was a lot of untabbing. You would have seen I had to get them all into their combined forms and then take them apart again to get their limbs connected. Whilst there's some things that like to come a little bit unpegged and you are resetting, I am pleased with it. I am more pleased with it than I thought I would be. And I will say it's because of one thing. Jakiro saves this set. This torso is saved because of that torso piece. It is so well built structurally that it helps the combined form in such a way that if it was of the same build quality as everything else here, it would be too fragile. It would be too much of a structure to hold and maintain. Posability would be an absolute nightmare. Whilst posability on combiners can be limited, and this is no exception to that, it is better than it should be because of him, because of Hung-Garr, and it works so much better. It wasn't too bad to combine. As I say, you have to take some bits apart. So if I turn him around, as you can probably imagine, it's the knees. So getting Blot's head pointing down, enough clearance for Hun-Garr's head to sit on top, was not that straightforward. I still think there are structural problems with Sinatwin as well. Connecting of the feet is fine enough. I don't know if you'll see it, but you might just see there the edge of the white piece as it meets the black combiner peg. I put the arms on upside down, and that was my choice. I wanted to do that so they wouldn't fall off, and I wanted to then put them on and rotate them 180 degrees so they would lock in all the more securely. It was a little bit firm because this grey plastic piece ever so slightly protrudes to the point that it reduces some of the articulation and it starts to shred the plastic ever so slightly. Very, very small. Look, if you put the arms in from the underside and latch them in that way, then maybe you're not having to do the rotation and therefore not shredding the plastic. It's something that I chose to do, making a bit of a wing of it, and yeah, it's just something I noticed. I won't go too heavy into articulation, but this is quite cool. Wrist rotations or wrist movement on a ratchet. I don't know if I've ever seen that on a combiner before. You certainly would have ratchets for moving, but it's friction everywhere else, but ratchets for outward movement. The hands are very expressionate with the claws, really giving that evil vibe. I really felt that's something they wanted to do with this set. Really works for me. These pieces make all the difference. They're the hip skirts, but also the missile launchers for Hun-Garr's weapon. A small detail, but a nice one. This is something that can happen a lot, being on the torso. His front shield, lower section, everything's on a hinge, and don't be surprised if it cascades in a little bit. Oh, and I mentioned this for the Hun-Garr review. That section has, well, it's a gap. It's something that you fill in with a translucent pieces. I wasn't sure what these pieces were. You can have a yellow one or a red one to put there as you see fit as a filler. Why they couldn't just fill that in from the start, I don't know. And of course, I'll show you his gun. Now, I love the fact that it's all the guns combined. I think that's really cool. More companies should do that. I dislike the fact it looks like a child's drawn it. It's the fact it's completely multicoloured, like a fruit pastel, and it just kind of loses the attraction. They could have all been pink, they could have all been blue, all been green. But when it's a hodgepodge of all the different colours, and I know they're keeping the colours with the individual figures, to me that's an odd choice. If they thought about how they're going to fix together, surely someone would have said, why don't we make them all the same colour? I just think that could have been designed better. The whole process could have been designed better in that sense. He grips it really well. I like the fact that Blot's gun has a bigger handle tucked into it. I actually didn't know that was there until I put it all together. And once you see the image, and this is pretty much the sense for all of this, because some of the instructions are very hit and miss, you can just figure it out for yourself and just work your way through it. And you can see which parts plug into where. All 5 guns are used here. No wasted parts. Very much like that. Okay, stability issues. Let me talk to you about it. It is again around Sinatwin, because I've got his leg a little bit forward, and it doesn't help when the gun's in here. He has a tendency to want to lean probably forward by about a degree or so, but it's like you have to set this leg forward. I don't know if I've got it at the moment, maybe I have, but if I try and send him straight back, it's like the toppling comes in. It doesn't help with the added weight of the gun. And you can see he wants to go. There he goes, and he's going. Yeah, it's typical problems, but I do think it is down to the fact that you've got this hip section on Sinatwin that you have to untab. And I've done this. I'll show you more in a second. It's hard to explain. For the rather odd choice of turning this round the other way, and I don't think I'm going to be able to show you. I don't think I can get his legs out of the way, or his head out of the way. These inner sections have got to tab into the chest, but then you could do with getting these green side bits, the robot arms, tagged into his legs. And that's all well and good, but then one pops out the other, and you've got an ab crunch rotation in the torso, which makes this upper section and lower section disconnect. And that's where the structural failure comes into it. I must admit, considering that Sinatwin was going to be a leg, didn't even need an ab crunch in the figure at all. I don't want to complain about articulation, but he didn't need it if he was going to be a rectangle. And as such, I think it's harmed the combine mode. And this is, again, assuming I've done it right. Because believe me, I've clipped it in on the sides to get that rigidness. But then it doesn't take an awful lot for it to come out. It's just too much weight, and it's not as rectangular as it should be, particularly with that movable waist section for the ab crunch. Now I'll show you the other accessories he came with. This is what I found out that this is now. This is the inner head section, the light piping that goes within. To get that off, that is the existing red section that's already there. That comes out. It's a bit difficult, so get some kind of part separator. Much like Hung-Gurr, it's just an outer shell, so in goes the new piece, lining it all up. But also you have this inner section, a rather circular section, which is where the batteries come into it, which we then get a battery, which I'm guessing is LR44, and we get a battery holder of sorts, which you can see works. As soon as I put it in, red eyes light up and goes in like that. I'll tell you what, I'll turn off the light of the light ring. That's cool. I like that. Now, I don't know if this has a switch. No, I don't think it does. So he's going to be constantly on. So there it is, all on, and as I say, with the light box off, the piercing red eyes making quite a bit of difference there. It will probably look better with the red eyes in it rather than the yellow shell, but to a point it doesn't really matter. They're still quite piercing anyway. I really like how it looks. I like the fact it comes away from light piping, as I gave you the impression under the previous reviews. I'm not a biggest fan of light piping. The only thing I'm thinking is I don't think there's a way to turn this off. So I think if you just left your collection in the dark overnight and came in and there was these two red eyes pointing at you with a jagged shark head and a vulture with pointed claws, yeah, that's going to freak someone out, isn't it? Additionally, we have changeable antenna horns. I wasn't a fan of the pink ones at first, but it's something you can change. They are on screw mounted, so you'd have to take them off and put them on, but you can imagine a more of a solid white head than the pink head. I actually quite like the pink features. I think the highlights of pink throughout this figure here and there are much better. I'll have to come back here to do combiner comparisons. Here he is alongside MMC's Maximus Pro. They're all-in-one built combiner, they're all-in-one version of Defensor. I am very pleasantly surprised how close these two are. And whilst you can see MMC is a bit taller still, certainly when you look at head positioning, the scale more or less still works. They're standing shoulder to shoulder, and they both kind of got extended shoulder sections to give that extra bit of height and definition. Now, I prefer the bigger end of Masterpiece, but I'm pleasantly surprised that this is at least up to that scale, where I thought he'd even come in a bit shorter, maybe having the head only up to the bottom of Defensor's chest. So for a scale, for a trade-off, that works for me. To think that Unique Toys comes in even smaller than this, yeah, we need something in this size representation, and I think TFC Toys should be proud of themselves that they've done that. And so you can see what we're dealing with. Here he is alongside Fans Toys Marauder, their version of a very Masterpiece scale Menasor. I can't think of many scenes where Abominus and Menasor appeared alongside one another, but nevertheless, you can see very high-end Masterpiece and not. And also you can see real stylization and not. So it's not many people are going to have the same figures in the collection unless you're a completionist or someone like me who's just a bit interested to see what another company can do. You've got real two ends of the spectrum of the stylization and the slender toon accuracy. They are not even close in terms of scale, but you can see that whilst this guy still is big, whilst Satan is still large, we're still a fair way off true MP scale combiners. But this comparison is brilliant alongside Power of the Prime's Predaking from Hasbro. This is the mixture of the Wei Zhang version as well, so I've got some upgrade kits along the way, but the scale is spot on. It's nice and easy to say this is Call of the Primitive vibes. I don't know if I can really stretch as much to that, but it's good to have two figures alongside one another. This is where I say this guy is chug scale. I question whether this is the right scale and called a Titan class combiner, and I'm not having it that Predaking is larger than any other combiner, but I love the fact that I now have a Predaking and an Abominus alongside one another that scale with each other. I think that's really, really cool. I'm pleasantly surprised how well they go side by side, even though with this scale and this representation you see the stylization versus maybe not Hypertoon, maybe a bit of a mixture of toy as well, but you do see less stylization with Predaking that you do with Abominus, and it might be down to something else to bring it a bit more in line, but for the here and now, I like how they look side by side. And I meant to show this comparison alongside his G1 counterpart. Look, he's precious. So precious. Sorry, Hung-Gurr. It's better if I show you some of his articulation through here. Right, one thing I am not a fan of, I'll show you this quickly. there is nothing stopping that head latch where Hun-Garr's head's underneath from clipping in or sinking down. I mean, it's a pretty sunken upper chest anyway, but if you can see, and you probably won't because of the light, there's no groove for that flat bit of the neck to plug into. So you're forever getting it right. I mean, he's got good neck clearance. That's where it should be, and it holds, but it takes nothing to knock him down or up. And all it needs is like a fan-out peg to keep it latched, and there isn't, at least nothing I've found. Just needs to sit in, and it's got nothing to do, so it does that. Very annoying. Also, the lights have gone off. I don't know how to turn them back on. It is quite heavy. It is quite sizable, considering diecast isn't here in spades. I'll show you some of the articulation. So we got head rotation 360 degrees all the way around. I like the head, I like the face sculpt, I like its very kind of angry face. Articulation on the arms. As you kind of see, I'm looking at it now, there's bits of plastic that I reckon it's going to chafe away. But you get some good ratchets. The ratchets have got very small teeth to them, so you won't hear them, but they've got small indentations. You'll get smaller movements out of them. Movement though does become a little bit limited as such, but he will go around, as you can see there. Elbow articulation is good, you can hear those ratchets on a single bend, but you'll get 90 degrees out of them. Fingers are, if anything, too stiff, but they are there. I love the expression at the claw hands, and again, love the fact that we got ratchets going in and out. That's pretty cool. Generally, the arms hold together well when you move stuff, although I will say, cutthroat of the two, you might do some different positioning of the wings, you might knock some stuff out. Got bicep rotation as well, that's pretty cool. And outward movement, and it will hold a pose mostly, but they're not the absolute tightest. But then again, I would be complaining if they were too tight, they were prone to snappage because they're not the deepest connections either. And also, if you start to move them, bits will come untabbed, so it's fine for its size. The chest is where stuff comes untabbed the most. I do like the fact of how it's all kind of Hun-Garr's tail and how it's all compressed up. That's quite cool. I like how that's all built in. There's no ab crunch, but I can forgive it because he's got his big bib on, hasn't he? So he's got no way of doing an ab crunch. But there is waist rotation on a friction. It's hidden, but it's there. There is movement, but he'll start to bump into himself a little bit. But there is some kind of posability to be had there. The back of the figure, whilst it cleans up well enough, this is where you'll see the leg articulation a bit better. So I'll try and get some stuff out of the way to show you. Very heavy ratchets, very good ratchets going out to the side, but he'll start to bump into his arms. Going backwards, that's a knee bend, and you get a good 90 degree there, and it holds. That's good. I will say that is from Blot, who was by far the weakest figure, yet is the best combined form. Still think there's stability problems with Sinatwin. As I mentioned in the Hung-Garr video, the knee cover can come open quite a bit because it feels like it's made out of rubber. You can get articulation forward, but move his lower bib forward, and then you're going forward on these very, very toothy ratchets, and you'll probably have to come a little bit to the side without trapping your thumb in it, and you'll get a front kick up to there. Now, I've tried him in one of the Kallax cupboards behind. You can get him in there, even with these pointy wings. Takes a little bit of poking around to do so. You can get him down to one knee, and I would even recommend using the gun for a bit of a crutch stability. But it can be done. Ankle articulation, I don't think there is a toe tilt down, and that's a bit of a shame. That's probably the only thing this is really missing. I mean, you can do a toe tilt up for what it's worth, but I don't think you can angle it down, but you can do a good sideways arch. They built it into the hinge, which I thought was quite cool. These big pink shoes of his. And a quick point I'll make around the gun. Now, okay, it's pretty sizable, pretty good gun. It's good that it's made up of all the pieces. I'll say it again, I don't like the fact that it's all multicolored. It reminds me of a gun from, was it Red Faction, one of the games, where when you complete the game you got this, rather than a serious rocket launcher, you got like a unicorn farting gun. It was weird. I don't know why it makes me think of that, but it does. That's a deep cut. It's really cool in as much as its size. I love the fact it's guns making guns. He holds it really well. If anything, he holds it too well, to such a point that if you put it into the peg and then try and get it out, you'll actually detach the other guns first before you get it out of the holster. If anything, it's too tight there, which is a good thing and a bad thing because there's no droopage of any kind, but you end up breaking it apart. Now, let's get on with the negative points first. The instructions are the biggest flaw here because I'm winging a lot of this. I'm going on this thinking it's right. I'm not sure it is right. I'm not sure it's combined right. There are some promotional images out there where It shows some things a bit different. There even has some blue bits on his front shield. It's odd. It's hard to work out. It's just a little bit of figure it out for yourself. And I think you can figure it out for yourself. It's not overly complex. It didn't help that if you go on the TFC's Toys YouTube channel, only 3 of the members have transformational steps up there. Now, to get to a combining video, I haven't got the exact one with me just now, but go to Jakiro's instructions and scan that QR code, and even then it's not straightforward. I said as much in a review of it. It took you to some weird upfront page that you had to click skip on, and then it took you to a video which was pretty good. But it didn't show you how to get from alt mode into combine mode just from robot mode. So considering I had them in beast mode at that point, it was a bit going back on yourself. Some of the steps are glossed over, and even the transformational videos on TFC's own YouTube page where they're listed up there, they're very short. They're like a minute and a half, and the steps are very quickly glossed over. Sinatwin lets the combined form down in terms of stability, and it's a shame because everything else is pretty good, but that hip articulation, or rather the hinge, I might even be able to show you. I can see it, you probably won't, but there is a hinge there for an ab crunch just in that crevice there, and that is what's causing the movement at the lower half. You can just sort of see it hinging down there, and that does not do well for a leg for a combiner. And whilst there's maybe some over tight tolerances for some sections, and maybe some bits like stability could have been tightened up a little bit more, I think TFC had a fair bit to do given what happened. Now, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened in terms of them running out of money or selling their designs or whatever. But I feel they clawed something back here and had to make something out of it, had to make something with the 4 figures that were already released, and have done really well in doing so, considering they haven't used parts forming. Although you could argue that Jakiro is very much a torso bot and not so much an individual robot. I would have liked thicker, deeper combiner ports. That would have gone a step further, maybe. But that's probably all I can say on it. Would it have been good if he came with a sword, maybe? Or an axe, or some kind of machete of some kind? Maybe it would have been a bit more threatening. The head sculpt I wasn't keen on when I saw the production shots. In hand it is better. Which brings me on to what I do like about it. I am very pleasantly surprised at it. I am now quite happy to keep it in the collection. One thing that really was a surprise to me is the size of it. I felt this was going to come in quite a bit smaller. Where I put it alongside the Power of the Primes Predaking and MMC's Defensor, again, I was very pleasantly surprised. Also, before I put the review up, I saw a review from China, perhaps, and it was someone doing a comparison, very brief comparison, alongside Unique Toys Abominus. And that is going to be the direct comparison. That's very G1. That is an older design, but probably still the best one out there, and very much has a big torso to it. This is quite a bit bigger than the Unique Toy version. Unique Toys came up to about here, so it was smaller still. And this is where we are a bit short for options for Abominus on the market. It's basically this guy, the Unique Toys version, or Combiner Wars if you want to stick an upgrade kit on it, and that's 10 years old as it is. Unique Toys is certainly G1 looking where this isn't, but if you want something to scale with your other combiners in your collection, then you're probably going towards this. Will TFC Toys do any reruns, re-releases? I don't think so. I really don't. If they've poured everything into getting this set finished, I think it's going to be a very long time, if at all, if they actually do a re-release of all of the members. Was it worth the money? Probably. Actually, yeah. I think this is about just under £500, and I think that's one of the cheaper offerings you'll find. Yes, it is smaller, maybe doesn't have as much die cast, but the build quality is here. As I said at the time, Jakiro has saved this set, and I stand by that. I think Jakiro does an awful lot, even if there are things that like to tab in. I was just really impressed when putting Jakiro into torso mode, how everything pegged away very securely. Another thing I've got to deduct is the time. I did it for Fan Toys with Ethereon, and what are we talking, 3 years with absolute radio silence? It's a long time, so it's a deduction on the set as a whole. It would have just been good to know it was still in production, still coming out. I mean, I had my pre-order in for a very long time hoping it would come out, and we didn't get a prototype for ages, but thankfully it did come out, and I'm glad I stick with it and nearly didn't. But it can be beaten, it will be beaten, but TFC Toys have done an admirable job, and I think this will look cool alongside other figures in my collection. Even if it is against G1 figures, I think it will still look good. So that craziness, the jaggedness, the stylization really works for this character. As it would done for Kang Toys with Predaking, I think it works here too, and I'm very pleased to have it. It is a recommend for me if you stuck into the set, if you can get them, just to have it in combined form, if nothing else. And God, I get to put you down now. Based on this, I give this guy 4 1/4 running with star badges. It's the build quality that's really saving it, and even if there is some niggly things throughout, I think it does a really good job. It's the biggest Abominus on the market today. We are not littered with options, and that's not looking to change anytime soon. So for the here and now, it works for me. And there we go. That is my review of TFC Toys Satan, their version of a very stylized Abominus. I'll put some photos up at the end. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and hit that subscribe button because I will see you on the next one.